Hey, I know that math is one of the things that parents just freak out about the most when they're homeschooling high school, but you really can experience high school math without the moaning. So let me talk you through this step by step. Yes, math can be scary. What you need to understand is that all parents reach that stage when they just are in over their head. And it happens at different levels for different people. I mean, at some people, it's pre-algebra. And other people, it's, doctoral dissertation math, and their child is super advanced. Everybody loses it at some point. None of us are going to be experts in that one field of math that our child really does well in. And so you might be tempted to think that another parent is better qualified to teach math to your child, but that is not the case. Actually, you are the best person that's qualified to teach your children math. And I just want to put your mind at ease, first of all. When you're teaching high school math, it looks different than what you may have seen in public school. In public school, there is a teacher at the front of the classroom who knows all about math and is instructing the children. That is not what happens in homeschooling. I can tell you what it looked like in my home. My children graduated homeschooling high school and actually had calculus. And I got to a certain point in math. It was right after geometry. I remember geometry being my last successful year understanding what was going on. And we got to the point, let's say calculus. I didn't understand what any of it meant. And I even had taken calculus in college and I still didn't understand what any of it meant. I didn't know how to say the words of the symbols. I didn't know what the symbols meant. And so here's what it looked like in my home. We had a video tutorial. My children would watch the video and then they would take their math book and their answer key and they would go over every problem in the book and they would look at the answers if they got stuck. Okay. And then once a week or every 2 weeks, I would take away the answer key and I would give them their test and supervise them taking this handwritten test. And then the test, I gave them the instructions. The answers had to look exactly like the answer key because I didn't know math. I couldn't tell if the answer key was right or wrong or what was equivalent or what wasn't equivalent. And so I told him, if it doesn't look exactly like is in the answer key, I'm going to have to mark it wrong. And you're more than welcome to call the math company if you'd like to and get some answers. So my children were able to use this strategy successfully all the way through high school. They actually went into calculus and differential equations. And one of them is an economist and one of them is an engineer. So it must have worked, right? But I don't want you to feel like when you do throw your hands up in despair, that somehow means that you have failed. Instead, what that actually means is you've made the switch from being the teacher to being the guidance counselor, the project manager, the person who makes sure that it's done. So you don't have to teach every step along the way. You just have to make sure that they have learned the material. So when you're thinking about math at home, the other thing you want to do is make sure it's at their level. You don't push them on too fast. You make sure that they're learning each step along the way. The flip side of that is I don't want you to make sure that they get 100% on everything before moving on, because that's not realistic either. About 80% correct usually means that the student has learned enough to move forward, understanding as they go. But think too about the correct sequence of math. When you get into high school, there's usually a progression that kids go through. Once they've gotten through their general mathematics, then they go into pre-algebra. Usually right around ninth grade, not always, but usually in ninth grade, they start with algebra 1 and then geometry or algebra 2 and then algebra 2 or geometry. Those two can kind of flip-flop. Then after that is trigonometry, which is similar to pre-calculus. And then after that is calculus. If you had to ask me my preference, I really do prefer that students take geometry before algebra 2 because the PSAT and SAT and ACT has so much geometry in it, not very much algebra 2. It makes more sense to do geometry first. The other thing about geometry is that it gives students the opportunity to practice their Algebra 1 over and over and over for the whole year. They're doing their geometry so that by the time they get into Algebra 2, it seems easier to them because they've practiced it so much. Then you want to think about, okay, we've got the correct sequence. How do we find the correct curriculum? And this can be a big surprise because for people who've been homeschooling all along, we think a lot about what we need as the teacher. And that becomes less and less important as you're no longer able to teach something, okay? Because really you're almost out of the equation entirely. And it's the student that has to fit the curriculum. It's no longer you choosing it because it's easy to teach. It's your student choosing it because that's the best way that they learn. So the first lesson I want you to understand is that it's not about what is the perfect curriculum. There is no perfect curriculum, especially in math. You're looking for the perfect fit for your child, okay? So you have them look at the video tutorial for each of the math curriculum that you're looking at, and then you ask them, which one do you prefer? So let's say they're going into Algebra 1, and you've decided, here's the 4 math curriculum that I'm considering. You look at the video tutorial for all 4 of them. You line them all up on your computer, get them all ready to play the first lesson of Algebra 1, and then you have your student watch those. And you decide based on the video tutorial which one is the best fit for your child. Because what will happen is sometimes they will have a preference that you could never have known. You might not know that they prefer a whiteboard over a chalkboard, or vice versa. You may not know that that particular accent drives them insane, or the way that this person dresses is just, I can't deal with the 1980s, right? And so they care very much about things that to you and I have nothing to do with math, right? And you don't want that to be an impediment, because some kids will learn best from a video tutorial and a book that's just all numbers, just no people, all numbers. Others have to have the people, or it doesn't make sense. If they don't see a face, it doesn't make sense to them. Other people, they need to have some manipulative, something that they do where the teacher says, okay, you want to fold this, or I want you to go outside and do that, or I want you to grab your Legos and do this, and something to help them to be a manipulative. So these students, your kids, will have some pet peeves or preferences or personality quirks that's going to affect the curriculum that you choose. Now, you also want to have the correct attitude. You know, they say that attitude is everything, and that is especially true in math. If you are saying to your children, or hinting, or whispering, I always hated math. I don't see why we have to teach math. I think math is crazy. You'll never use this in real life. I was never very good at math, and you take after me in all sorts of ways. That is going to set them up for failure. But you can instead give them some positive self-talk. Boy, you're really good at math. I'm constantly amazed at what a good job you do understanding it. You're so thorough and careful. I love how consistent you are. I love that you're working hard on it every day. Now listen, if math is your weak area, I want you to be thinking about giving yourself the correct attitude too about the curriculum. If their curriculum is not working for them and math is just, it's a crash and burn scenario, within a month of school starting, I want you to give yourself permission to look again at math curriculum, decide again which curriculum is the best fit, because sometimes you save more money by making a change after a month of school than you do if you have a whole year of this curriculum they hate and then they fail, right? So you want to make sure that you give them exactly what they're needing. The next thing I want you to do is to use the correct speed in math. You don't have to go gangbusters. You can go at your child's pace, but I also don't want you to be a chicken and not give them the next level of math. I've known plenty of parents that say after Algebra 1, that's it, I give up. We're going to do business math because I can't handle it, right? you're really doing your children a disservice, because they may not have the same impediments to math that you do. They may not have the same fears or concerns or anxieties about it. So if you just go into it like changing a diaper, here we go. This is what we do, and then they can work forward, moving at their own speed. Now, for some children, the correct speed of math really does take them a bit longer. They work for an hour a day, but they only get through half of a textbook, and that's okay. For other kids, they're just booming forward. They don't need 20 problems a day in order to learn. They're good with 5. So you can give them as many questions as they need in order to learn the material. Nobody is requiring you to do every problem in the book. Instead, you only give your children as many problems as they need in order to learn the material. And everybody needs a different number of problems. So, for example, if you have a very gifted child who's good at math, one option that you could do is to give maybe the last 5 questions in the problem set. If they get the last 5, those are usually the hardest, right? If they get those 5 right, they don't need to do the other 25. Or maybe they're not quite gifted, they're just kind of good with math, right? So then you can give them either the odd numbered problems or the even numbered problems. And then if they still don't understand, they're not getting, most of them right, then you can go back and do the opposite one. And that way it rewards them for being careful. Now, there are lots of homeschool curriculum options out there. As you're looking through the suggestions, I want you to think about choosing a homeschool curriculum, not a public school curriculum, because that will assume that you as the teacher know nothing, and that the student as the student knows nothing, and they're teaching from this, common starting point. But if you use a curriculum intended for schools, you may not understand how the program works, and you may not be a math teacher, making it much, much more difficult. When you're looking at homeschool math curriculum, look for something that does have a video tutorial. Try to find an answer key that actually shows solutions to the problem, right? Not just saying the answer is 12x, but saying here is how we get to the answer of 12x, okay? So it's a solution manual more than just an answer key. And if possible, trying to find a homeschool curriculum that does have some sort of contact information, so that if you're struggling to get the right answer, there is a resource available to you. Don't be surprised when math books have errors in their answer key. That happens a surprisingly amount of time, regardless of where you get the textbook. So you want to have some sort of way to reach out to the publisher to say, what are the mistakes in the answer key? So, can you send me those now so I don't need to worry about it anymore? And that can really help you as you're thinking things through. I do encourage you to have some fun with math. You can add some math games and supplements. Think about the different games that we play every day that are math based, and you can even find games at the upper levels. We also enjoyed video supplements. In our homeschool, we got the Great Courses video called Calculus Made Clear. And I'm pretty sure that that's why my children understand calculus and I don't understand calculus. I think that was an important piece of why they were able to do that. So let's be honest, though, a math career is not a career choice for everybody, but it is an important skill in daily living. And many times people will say, I don't remember everything about their math. And that's really true. You don't remember all of your high school math. But the farther you can get in high school math and then you forget 2 years of it, the more math you keep, right? And that's another reason for you to continue with math, so that as they forget a portion of it, at least they'll retain quite a bit of it. So think about investing in a math curriculum. And one final note, I just wanted to ask you if you've ever thought, have I ever wished that there was a curriculum called the hard work curriculum? And I will posit that there is. And the hard work curriculum is actually called math, right? Because whatever level of math you're on, if it's challenging to your child, it's teaching them hard work. It's teaching them how to learn. It's teaching them how to learn on their own when you aren't able to help them. And these are all things that are incredibly important for all adults. So, all that to say, don't be afraid of high school math. I want you to think about choosing a curriculum that's a good fit, that matches your students' learning styles, gives your teenager some feedback, and using curriculum that is meant for homeschoolers, because you will be more successful when you're schooling your children at home when you're using curriculum that was intended to be used that way. I hope that helps you teach math. Don't be afraid. You can do it. You can do it. Take care.